show, I've somehow truncated the scripture when I've given it to Brian. So I take the blame. I don't know what I did.
Oh, no, blame Brian. It's my brother-in-law. He can handle it.
That's
To
a long
start,
list.
I'm going to ask Bev and Janet to come up. Okay. Have you read, or you had a chance to read yours? Okay.
Memorize it.
I'm going to ask you to go in the kitchen and shut the door for a minute.
I don't like this. But it works.
Okay. So, Bev has a scenario. I'm not going to tell you what it is at all. Okay, and Bev's not going to give it away. All right? So Bev now has a single apple. Okay? And Bev now has a group of people. We're going to say it's this group right here. Okay? This is your family over here. And this is the group that shows up, and they're all hungry, and you've got one apple. What are you going to do?
Do I read?
No. What are you going to do?
I'm gonna share it with everybody. I'll cut it and share it with everybody. I
Okay.
can do the best I can with what I have.
Okay.
Just eat it yourself.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. Hey, let me look at you.
Yeah.
I was just supposed to read.
No. Come on.
She didn't sneak out.
So, this is your family over here that you've been taking care of. Now, this group comes to you, and they're all hungry.
Okay,
You have an apple. What are you going to do?
well, apples are pretty cheap at the grocery store right now. I've got a little extra money because we got our tax refund. So if you all will just sit tight for a minute, I'll be right back.
Okay. Thank you.
Do I have to leave again?
No, you can sit down now.
That was all?
That was it.
That was it?
Yeah, that's all.
There was just.
That's your scenario. I'm going to remove the knives. Okay. What was the difference between these two scenarios here?
One was broke.
I still didn't get any out.
Yeah, that's true. They're still hungry.
Or angry.
Somebody said it over here. Yeah. So Bev had a different scenario than Janet. Bev's scenario was that humanity only eats apples. And that apple was the last one left. And she had to feed all these people over here. And there's apple flu. Made it up. Apple flu rumored to be going through and affecting the trees. And now this group of people shows up wanting food. What's she to do?
Make the best of what she has.
When she carves that little apple up and gives you all your little piece, you're going to realize that they may not have anything else to eat for another year. So they have apples again. Now, Janet had a totally different scenario. Janet was told that humanity eats vegetables, never seen it, but I hear it's true, fruit, steak, etc. Apples are cheap. There's tons of them at the grocery store. She has another bag of them in the kitchen. So guess what she could do? Give everybody an apple. And yeah, you could come feed Bev's group as well. But what did it look like from out there without knowing what their scenarios were? Were you confused why Bev was chopping her little apple up into little pieces?
Thankful.
Yes. Hmm? Thankful?
Scarcity.
Could you tell?
I think so.
You were kind of suspicious of it, right? And in Janet's scenario, you could kind of tell what Janet had a ton of stuff, right? So what we're going to talk about today is what's called the scarcity mindset. And I wanted to start with this passage. It's one we actually talked about not too long ago. I preached on it. And when I saw that it was a lectionary, I went, I can't say any more about it, how wrong I was. There's always more to be said on any passage. Let me go ahead and read. It's from Luke 4, 1 through 4. Jesus, full of the Holy Spirit, returned from the Jordan and was led by the Spirit in the wilderness, where for 40 days he was tested by the devil. He ate nothing at all during those days, and when they were over, he was famished. The devil said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command this stone to become a loaf of bread." Jesus answered him, "It is written, one does not live by bread alone." Now, when we read that passage, I kind of actually have one of those duh moments. It's like, duh, of course we don't. I mean, we've all grown up hearing this, heard Jesus say it, and we even know what the counterpart is, right? We need spiritual food. You know, we need to feed our spirit. But I want us to dig a little bit deeper on that thought today. I want us to really think about what happens when we don't think we have enough. When we don't think we have enough, it actually changes the way we think. It changes our brain. I actually did a ton of research when I was working on this, and I found that Harvard and strategic leadership and all these different places, strategic coaching I think was the name of it, and a place called Martech, had done these research, and let me show you, if Brian will switch the slide for me. Look at all the stuff that they say happens when you think you don't have enough. Says the scarcity mindset makes us risk adverse. Right? If you're afraid there's not enough stuff, you're not going to take as many risks. It makes us distrustful and suspicious. That kind of surprised me. How did not thinking I have enough make me distrustful or suspicious? Well, you probably assume other people are hoarding stuff, don't you? Or you see Janet up here just freely giving away apples, and you're just like, huh, no wonder we're hungry. Janet has them all. Right?
I love apples. But she shares.
The scarcity mindset, this is no surprise, it makes us unlikely to share. And if I don't have enough, I can't share. It can paralyze decision making. Now, that's not surprising. Honestly, if you don't know if you have enough resources, you're not sure what to do. Should I cut this apple up into little pieces and give it out? Or should we maybe take it and plant it and grow more trees? And then you get stuck there trying to figure out what to do. Because once you cut up that apple or once you put it in the ground, it's gone, right? You can't go back. The scarcity mindset prefers small choices to big decisions. So it's much easier to make those small decisions instead of looking at a big picture. It seeks external approval of decisions. It is in crisis mode. It produces a transactional form of behavior. In other words, I'll give you my apple, but I expect 2 oranges in return. Right? Whereas Janet can give hers away for free. It is loath to part with resources. And it builds fear, which produces its own mental burden. Wow. These are all proven things. If you go to the next slide too, this is the study that strategic coaching did. See, the abundance mindset, the tools, systems, and networks create new areas of personal and general expansion in which the factors of growth continually multiply each other. There are increasing opportunities for more individuals to create new practical solutions and breakthroughs that become immediately useful for many others. And then there's opportunity. More and more individuals have the ability to combine their capabilities with others in ways that continuously make the future bigger than the past. The scarcity mindset doesn't have that opportunity. Zero sum. There's only so much of everything available in the world for everybody. If someone does well, it must be all at the expense of everyone else who's doing good, right? Who's doing poorly, sorry. There's only one way to get ahead, right? If there's a limited amount of something, the only way you can get ahead is by taking it from somebody else, okay? Depletion. All of the natural resources that support life on the planet are being depleted, and there's no way they can be replaced. Shortages are increasing everywhere. And then unfairness. Resources, capabilities, and opportunities are unfairly distributed among the global population. Radical change is needed to redistribute everything on a fairer basis. The reason I wanted to talk about this is, and I'm just going to name the elephant in the room, politics right now. Boy, is the world divided. The United States is more divided than I've ever seen it. And one of the things that I think would be helpful for all of us is to kind of go back and look at how we're approaching things. Jesus is saying more than go out and take care of your spiritual side. He's also saying, look, get out of a scarcity mindset. You've got to get out of that mindset, because when we're in that mindset, we shut down. We really shut down. We don't share. We don't take risks. We don't go out and try big things. A lot of these are the things that Jesus has asked us to do, to share. Give your coat, right? How can I, if there's only 2 coats left in the whole world and I have 20 people to keep warm? It's a very different scenario than if I have 20 coats and only 1 person to keep warm. That mindset, though, becomes ingrained in us if we're not careful. And it begins to consume us, that mindset of there's not enough, there's not enough, there's not enough. And that affects how we do things. It affects the way, and let's talk about politics, it affects the way we vote. It affects the way we see all of the things that are going on around us. And I'm not going to argue that one side, if you have an abundance mindset, you're going to vote X, and if you have a scarcity mindset, you're always going to vote Y, because that's not the reality of it. But what I want us all to do is think about, is a scarcity mindset affecting the way I vote? I don't care which candidate you end up landing on, but is it affecting the way I vote? Is it affecting the way I live? Am I allowing that fear of a limitation of resources to cause it to affect everything I do? So, someone throw out a political scenario, and let's talk about the abundance mindset versus the scarcity mindset. Immigration, that's a good one. Okay? Pros and cons of immigration. We could go on and on and on. Okay? I think there's good arguments on both sides. I really do. Matter of fact, there's some of these, I don't even want to take a side, because I don't know about you guys, but I feel both sides. I wouldn't really want to be trapped down in South America, being ruled by cartel, etc., etc. But if I have a scarcity mindset and I'm here in the States, and I'm already we work till what, June what? To pay my taxes? And then you're going to ask me to feed somebody else too? So there's both sides to that story, right? There's two sides. Both those sides may be right, both those sides may be wrong. But what we want to do is make sure that as we make these decisions, we're not thinking of it just out of a scarcity mindset. Just out of that. We have to check ourselves. We may come to an abundance one and still say, at the end of the day, it's still illegal and I don't think people should do it. You may come to that conclusion. I think it's important for us at the very beginning, though, to think about how we're thinking about it. Not just think about it, but think about how we're thinking about it. What am I doing? What's causing me to think this way? It's tough, isn't it? And I know today, man, we're going to go deep here, and I wanted to start with something fun with Bev and Janet, because I knew that they could do this. And I knew Bev was going to try to share her apple, however she could. But I wanted to use that as an illustration of the fact that sometimes we don't know where the other person is coming from when we interact with people. And it's very possible that that person is struggling with a scarcity of resources or the mindset of a scarcity of resources. Because there is such a thing as a scarcity of resources.
Yeah.
I mean, it does happen. But once it happens, we got to be careful that we don't allow it to become our norm. And as I was reading through some of this stuff, I realized there were some things that I do feel like I have a scarcity mindset on, and then other things that I don't. So it's not like it's one or the other, but I think if I'm not careful, my scarcity mindset about time and other things, how many tacos are left in the world, though that if I'm not careful, I can allow that to start consuming me. Especially the taco part, right? It can begin to consume me, and the next thing I know, that's the way I'm thinking about everything. So the first part of this is that I'm asking us all to think carefully about my mindset. Am I speaking from a scarcity mindset? And it may be something you learned as a kid. It may be something that people have said to you. It may be the fact you watch a lot of news and all you see is the bad stuff and not any of the good stuff, etc., etc. There's no telling where it came from. But the second part of this is I want us all to err on the side of grace when we're interacting with somebody. Because we don't know. We don't know what their resource situation is or how they're thinking about their resource situation. It would have been easy to condemn Bev for not handing out apples. Having no idea that Bev was told that humanity only ate apples, her apple tree's sick. She's heard that all the other apple trees are sick. And she has to feed 20 people, and there might not be any more food until next year. It's very different than the scenario I gave Janet, who had apples, and they were cheap, unlike eggs. She had apples. But how important it was for us, as we watched the two of them, to not automatically assume Janet was the nice person and Bev was stingy. Wouldn't that have been easy to do? Maggie's like, we know Bev. We do know Bev. And that's why I picked Bev, because I knew she would try to share and we knew she would do her best to share. But there's often times where we do not know what the people are dealing with. And we don't know how they're thinking about things. And so we have to err on the side of grace. We have to give them the benefit of the doubt. Third part of this is, though, we can also help people move out of a scarcity mindset. we can actually bring people along. That's what Jesus is trying to do in this passage, right? He's saying, it is written, one does not live by bread alone. We can help someone see the resources that they have available to them. We can help them see another side of something. If, for example, Bev, struggling because her apple tree has apple flu, and she's got one apple left, Janet could look at Bev, she's got a couple of options, right? One of them, you could look at Janet and say, oh my gosh, you are just so stingy. Or she could simply give a bunch of apples to Bev. Or she could say to Bev, hey, Bev, guess what? You can eat vegetables. And there's a ton of asparagus planted all around the church. You know? That one was for Rocky. So, what an opportunity Janet has, instead of condemning Bev, instead of just throwing some apples out there and that fix the problem. Janet has an opportunity to guide and teach. Got to start with compassion, right? And then from the compassion, go to guess what? Humans can eat more than apples. There are other things you can do. So that's part of the process. That's, to me, what's so important about this. And then I want to finish with what God's always doing behind the scenes. Because God often, we see a little bit of something, right? So let me share with you. Everybody know what that is? What is it? Anybody happen to know what kind of ants those are?
It's the water, honey, water.
Army ants.
Carpenter ants.
If you look, one of them's got a leaf.
Leaf cutter.
Yes. They're leaf cutter ants. Leaf cutter ants. Okay, everybody knows how big an ant is. So there's the hole there, right? Not much going on, is it? You know, often when we look at a problem or we look at what's going on around us, you know, that's all we see. Okay? So what's happening underground? They're excavating a leafcutter ant nest there. It's huge. Those are people, by the way. That's the top of a couple of people. So the nest is almost up to here. I had the great fortune, actually, of going to Trinidad and seeing these nests and seeing the work that these leafcutter ants do. And it was really neat because a lot of other things live around the nest as well. It was amazing because we dug some up. And we were getting the queens out to bring back to the States to take to some zoos. And, you know, oh, it's a little hole. All you do is a little scoop, right? Yeah, we were up over our head digging to try to get to the queen. Folks, that's it. God is always at work in every situation. Deep, stretched out, connecting, doing all this stuff. What we see on the surface sometimes is just a minuscule reminder of the fact that God is at work underneath. That God is busy in all these situations. All these tough things that we're dealing with. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know how to solve all this division going on. But what I do know is that God's underneath working. That God's busy. That God's stretching out and connecting, and that God's growing deep roots. And I can take joy in that. And I can know that with God at work, it's taken care of. Right? It's solvable. But it doesn't have to be all just ugliness and distrust and anger. Because we can trust and rest on the fact that God is at work. And that should just give us a ton of joy. Amen.